Waiting can be exhausting. There are moments when everything inside you cries out for answers, for a sign, for a clear path. But instead, the silence lingers. The doors remain closed. Time passes, and nothing changes. And this is when uncertainty begins to weigh heavy on your heart. Have you ever felt stuck between what God has promised and what is yet to happen? Like you're holding a ticket to a destination, but have no idea when boarding will be announced? Waiting can make us doubt. Did God hear me? Does He care? Am I missing something I should be doing? But what if waiting isn't just a delay? What if it's a time of preparation? What if, while we think nothing is happening, God is actually working on something far greater than we can see right now? Waiting is hard. It doesn't matter if we're waiting for an answer, a healing, a miracle, or simply a sign that things will get better. Waiting tests us. It makes us question. It makes us doubt. And you know what makes it even harder? We live in a world where everything is instant. With one click, we get the information we need. With a tap on a screen, we can order food, transportation, entertainment. We're used to getting quick answers all the time. But God, He doesn't work that way. His timing follows a different rhythm, a different purpose. He doesn't conform to our clocks, our urgencies, our need for control, and that can be frustrating. Maybe you've asked yourself, if God can do anything, why doesn't He do it now? I've asked myself that question so many times. Maybe you have too. Sometimes we wait so intensely for something that it feels like God has forgotten us. We look around and see other people receiving what we long for, and we ask, why not me? What am I doing wrong? But does waiting mean that God isn't working? Or could it be that He is preparing something we just can't see yet? I've had moments in my life when I felt this way. I remember a season when I deeply wanted something to happen. I prayed, asked for signs, did everything I could, but nothing changed, and the waiting became heavy. You know that feeling of being caught between a dream and reality? Like you're holding a ticket in your hand but have no idea when your boarding call will come? Then one day, while talking to a friend, he said something I'll never forget. What if waiting isn't a punishment? What if it's a gift? That stopped me in my tracks. Because when we're waiting, all we see is the emptiness, the absence of what we want. But what if God is filling this time with something we'll only understand later? Think about Joseph's story in the Old Testament. He had grand dreams, but before seeing them come true, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned for years. If anyone had a reason to think God had forgotten him, it was Joseph. But in the end, what happened? God didn't just fulfill His promise. He placed Joseph in a position far greater than he could have ever imagined. His waiting wasn't a delay. It was training. What if that's what God is doing with you? I know it's hard to believe that when you're in the middle of the process. I've doubted it many times myself. But I've learned something over time. God never wastes a waiting season. I remember a friend who lost her job out of nowhere. She felt lost, scared, unsure of what to do. But a few months later, a much better opportunity came. One in a field she didn't even know she loved. If God had answered her prayers immediately, she would have missed out on a life-changing opportunity. We often see waiting as a problem, but what if it's preparation? Jesus showed us this over and over again. One of the most powerful moments was when Lazarus got sick. His sisters, Martha and Mary, sent an urgent message to Jesus, expecting Him to come immediately and heal their brother. But Jesus waited. He took so long that by the time He arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. To everyone there, it seemed like Jesus had failed, that He had come too late. But the delay wasn't a mistake. Jesus knew exactly what He was doing. He didn't just want to heal Lazarus, He wanted to resurrect him. God's timing seemed slow, but He was preparing a far greater miracle. How many times do we miss what God is doing because we're so focused on how long it's taking? What if, instead of asking, why is it taking so long, we started asking, What is God teaching me in this season? I know this answer doesn't make waiting easier. I know your heart still aches, anxiety still builds, and the days still feel long. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: God is never late. He arrives at the right moment, in the right way, to do what is best for us. So maybe the real question isn't when will God act, but rather, am I trusting Him while I wait? Because waiting isn't wasting time. It's trusting that, in the right time, God will do something far greater than we can imagine. And what if, instead of fighting against the waiting, we learn to rest in it? I know, resting seems impossible when you're anxious for an answer. But resting in God doesn't mean giving up. It means taking a deep breath and believing that He is in control, even when nothing makes sense. Have you ever thought that if God gave you all the answers now, faith wouldn't be necessary? Faith grows in the waiting because that's where we learn to trust without seeing. Maybe this waiting season is when God is strengthening something within you, preparing you for what you're asking for. If He hasn't answered yet, it doesn't mean He has forgotten. It means He is working on every detail, and when the time is right, you'll see that the wait was worth it. Waiting without knowing when something will happen can be overwhelming. But what if, instead of just counting the days, you used this time differently? Have you ever considered that this waiting season might have something to teach you? I know this isn't the answer we usually want to hear. We want certainty, we want solutions. But if God hasn't revealed the next step yet, could it be that He's inviting us to see something here, in this very moment? I have a challenge for you. Grab a piece of paper, a notebook, or simply close your eyes for a moment and reflect. What is this waiting season teaching me? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's trust. Maybe it's the chance to strengthen your faith without needing guarantees. And one more thing. Look back. How many times have you waited for something, only to realize later that God's timing was better than yours? We tend to forget this when we're in the middle of the process. But remembering what God has already done helps us trust what He is still doing. So, in this waiting season, instead of just counting the days, try something different. Count the ways God has already taken care of you. It could be in small things, simple moments that you didn't notice at the time but now make perfect sense. And when anxiety creeps in, when the wait feels too long, ask yourself this question: do I trust that God is working, even when I don't see anything happening? Because He is. And one day, you'll look back and understand the reason for every moment of waiting. Until then, trust. One day at a time. Waiting can feel like walking through a dark tunnel, unable to see the light at the end. But does waiting really mean that nothing is happening? Or could it be that, in the silence, between what we ask for and what we receive, God is shaping something within us? So often we want to understand everything right now. We want a clear sign, an open door. But God rarely works that way. He teaches us along the journey, step by step, in the moments when we must trust without seeing. And maybe that's exactly what waiting is meant to teach us. Trusting in the unseen. Have you noticed how sometimes the biggest transformations happen when we stop fighting against time and simply allow God to guide us, without rushing, without fear? Author Lewis Smedes once said, "Waiting with patience is trusting that we have a future, even when it is still hidden from us." And that's it. Waiting isn't empty. It's a path. A season where God is preparing you for something you can't yet see. Maybe the answer hasn't come yet. But that doesn't mean God isn't working. Perhaps He's not just preparing what you asked for. He's preparing you to receive it. So when doubt creeps in, when time feels unbearably long, remember this: God never wastes a waiting season. And in the right time, you'll see that every moment was worth it. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. Psalm 41.